Keya with Communities and Schools of Hampton Roads, and today I have Delegate and Attorney dscott with us here discussing what is happening here in the world today. We're dealing with a lot of racism. We're dealing with the Ahmaud Arbery situation. We're dealing with the Breonna Taylor situation. We're just seeing a lot of injustices right now. But before we get into all of that, let dscott tell you a little bit about himself, and then we'll jump right in.
Thank you for having me. I am dscott. I'm a local attorney here representing Portsmouth. I'm also a member of the House of Delegates, proud to say, elected this past November, was sworn in January. Had a great time in my first session. House District 80, which is almost all of Portsmouth, not all, a few precincts, but everything else is in Portsmouth. I've enjoyed practicing here. I have a daughter and my wife's a dentist here in the area in Norfolk. And I think it's a great place to be right now. I think the only thing that you always want to ask is, you're blessed to live in interesting times, and you're blessed to be able to have an impact. And I think, this is a time and a moment in time, and there are going to be people who are qualified and who have been made qualified, I think, by God and prepared to take the lead and to help in these issues. And I think my life experiences as an African-American man who's also been involved with the criminal justice system, I think I have a unique perspective on everything that's going on now. It has been a tragic and heartbreaking time, but also, I try, to help folks focus on how do we turn this painful time that we have, this painful moment that we have. We got to turn this pain into purpose. We cannot let other people hijack what we know that needs to be done and use it for other purposes that will not be for the good of Black people and the country as a whole. I'm also a naval veteran, a former naval officer, so I understand a whole lot about what's going on. It frightens me that the president is talking about instituting the Insurrection Act to be able to get the military to come in and prey on its own brothers and sisters, the people and its own fellow citizens. Right. People who sign up in the military, we sign up to fight our enemy. Mm-hmm. And our countrymen are not, and women, they're not our enemy. And so, they're our neighbors, our brothers, our families. And so for this person to use this platform because he is politically desperate is sad. And I'm hopeful that people from his own party, because obviously he doesn't listen to those folks who are Democrats or listen to the other side of the aisle. I'm a Democrat. But I'm hoping the good folks within his own party will temper his worst instincts and speak out against the things that he's trying to do for the good of the entire country right now. It's been painful to watch him be lukewarm about calling out for police reform, calling out the people that caused this man's death, George Floyd's death. He's not said anything that would comfort the nation, which you would expect from a commander-in-chief. So I'm hopeful that there are other folks in his party who are fair-minded, even though we may differ on how we get solutions, that they will speak out on these issues. So that's my view.
So I think one of the questions I have you, since you brought up the president and the change that needs to occur, being now that you're a delegate and you're in politics, tell me what would be the steps for the ordinary citizen, myself, my neighbors, my coworkers, what would be the steps to start the actual progress toward change? Like, I'm for the protesting, I'm not for the looting and rioting, but where do we take this conversation on? Because it seems like we're fueled for a moment, but then it dies down and we never see the action or the return that we would want to see on the steps that we have been taking.
Well, in our history, throughout our history, there have been people of goodwill, Black, white, whatever religion, whatever gender, who've always been able to organize for long-term, sustained movement to get new policy. At the end of the day, this is about policy and law, and how do we hold folks accountable. So for the ordinary person, it's good to go out, and I think the protests will help. That is our God-given American right to say ouch when we hurt. Don't get mad at me because I don't say ouch the way you say ouch. I'm hurt and I say ouch. And the way that people without as much power speak to those in power is through protest. That is a constitutional, fundamental right to protest. And for people to be labeling protesters as though they're doing something wrong, and when they're not, they're protesting in the public square. That's a fundamental right of this country and of a human being. That's a God-given right to say ouch and to be able to ask for redress for wrong. So I'm for that, but I'm also for the other part, which is the harder work. How do you get good policy in place? How do you get good ideas in place? And the way you do that is the people who are protesting have to turn those protests into votes. I tell some of my colleagues who are, I say it like this, a lot of my white colleagues are saying, oh, I feel so bad, and what can we do? I'm like, vote right. Vote right. The folks who are in the House of Delegates and where I am, I love to hear your sentiments, but I want you to vote right. So when I introduce these bills to redress the historical harms of the criminal justice system and how, Black folks, we, 20% of the Commonwealth, but we 65% of the folks in prison with these long sentences, I want you to fix that because I know white folks, I know they might not believe it, but they do just as much stuff that we do. The difference is they get breaks. The difference is their communities are not being policed the way our communities are being policed. The difference is that when they go before the judge, nobody's telling them to take a plea or not. When they go to the prison system, they're not being punished the same way, and we know this from empirical data, that they get shorter sentences. Black people get longer sentences for less crime, and so I want to correct and fix those. And so I've introduced a bill for earned time credits where people can get more time off if they do evidence-based programming while in jail. They do what they need to do, regardless, violent, non-violent. Because I think, a lot of the Christians always talk about Paul, but Paul was killing Christians. Mm-hmm. He was a murderer. And now we talk about him and revere him. So I'm going to let God be the judge. And I believe in rehabilitation. If the prisons are doing what they say they're intended to do, which is to rehabilitate, why do you have a problem with them going in and then coming home? Because according to you, you got a system that rehabilitates. Do you not believe in your system? If you do, let them out. Give them an opportunity after they've earned their way out. Give an opportunity to let them out. So that's one of the things. And I think there are a lot of policies around parole, around community policing. We got to put the citizens back in charge of policing. Right now, it's the other way around. We pay our tax dollars contribute to the police. And then they come in our community and act like, we work for them. And I think that servant mentality has to come back into play. And those people who are in law enforcement need to have that servant mentality.
So what would you suggest, and we can use our city as an example, what would you suggest for, and maybe just not our city, any city who's struggling during this time with that relationship? Because this is what this boils down to, is how do I see my fellow brother, my citizen, my neighbor, the people I'm supposed to protect and serve? How do I view them? So how do you change these relationships to make them turn to positive versus the negative, where we're seeing all these outcomes come where our African-American brothers and sisters are being hurt, being treated harshly or unfairly? So how do we fix this, and how do we build stronger relationships between police departments and the community at large?
I think everybody wants to talk about where they need to see us better. We need to start picking the right people to do these jobs in the first place, and then we need to start disciplining and removing those people that they have. We had a zero tolerance policy in school. You got into a fight, you were done. But we'll let an officer, we'll tolerate those who commit wrongdoing as officers. And I think the policy, the union, that's a problem. The unions negotiate contracts whereby the city can't fire them. They get all of these chances to do wrong, and then they might get fired. I haven't looked at this particular union contract, but I want to. And I think I want to introduce legislation that those union contracts that include personnel language that will protect officers, or that can call for the rehiring of officers, then that needs to be taken out. We need to call for decertification of law enforcement. When they've demonstrated that they're not qualified to interact with our community, they need to be decertified. I think the social contract that you're seeing, people are challenging. People think that those 4 officers or that 1 officer is on trial in Minneapolis. The American way of life is on trial. The social contract that you've made with your citizens is on trial. Because basically there are not enough police to police all of the people here. We have to agree to be policed. We have to agree. And so right now, that contract of trust has been broken. And what we need to do to repair it, we got to have the right people. So what I would tell folks locally to do is, I'm calling for a community police review board, whereby when there's any wrongdoing alleged by the police, the community members who are maybe appointed by council and the mayor, they get the review. That's what we need. We need to have citizen accountability, not just the city manager and the politics of the mayor. We need to have citizen accountability. And that was one of the first things
I totally agree. And so in fostering the relationships with community and police, one thing I noticed is that oftentimes the people who serve in the communities are not from the community in which they serve.
Great.
And so what can we do as people who are hiring those that are coming from our cities to, or from other cities, how can we be better in choosing people that represent the communities that they serve and will form a relationship? Even though if you're coming from outside city, it's not that we won't hire you. How are you going to form a relationship in the communities that you are to serve? Are you going to be visible? Are you going to volunteer? Are you going to come and visit some of these neighborhoods and really spend time to get to know the people in the neighborhoods that you protect and serve? How are we going to do that? How can we get that time?
So one of the things that I'm asking for and I'm going to be advocating for is that I would love for a certain percentage of the law enforcement that patrol the city, they have to live within the city limits. I don't know if I can get that through, but I'm definitely trying. The second thing is if we can't get the line staff to be in, then all of the leadership needs to live in the city. Because when you live in the city and you leadership, it's more likely that you'll hear and see everything. And I think right now, if you're getting out, and I think right now what you're saying is very important because a lot of the officers, the only time people see them is in uniform. The ones that's in patrol, and even if they're doing volunteer stuff, they're doing it in uniform. They're coming out speaking to a civic league in uniform. They're doing it from their job. They're not doing it because they love the community and they're inculcated in the community, they're part of the fabric of the community. And so until that happens, we're going to continue to have this hunter and hunted mentality, which is what a lot of us see. And then don't even get me started on the racial diversity in a city like Portsmouth, where we are, 50% Black or close to it. Our police force is nowhere near that. And I'm not saying that that's a requirement that you have to be Black to police Black people, but I'm saying there's no way a white city would have a majority Black police force. Right. Think about how absurd that would sound to white people, that their entire police force, or 70% of their police force that was policing their communities were Black people, and they didn't even live in the community.
Right.
Imagine that.
Right. Because what I noticed, I went online and I looked up statistics because I read and I want to find out the facts. So I looked at Minneapolis statistics, and they are 68% white, somewhere around that area. But I really don't. And then trying to find out how many actual officers were African American, that was even harder to try to find out.
Did you find it?
No, I didn't find it.
The data is all over the place, and that was one of the things Delegate Luke Torian introduced the bill just to be able to. We had to fight to be able to get a community policing information act. Basically, I forgot exactly what he labeled it, but it's basically like, give us the data. Tell us how many law enforcement people are stopping people, what the race of the officer is, what the race of the people they're stopping, traffic stop, whether they got a ticket, whether they got a warning. We want use of force data. What was the race of the person, of the officer? What was the race of the person that was the so-called suspect or the alleged person, the victim of the officer's conduct? We want to know everything. And I think what's happening is police forces are becoming smarter and smarter on how to hide bad officers. And we want them to be more transparent. I can tell you personally, I'm probably one of the only members in the House of Delegates who successfully sued the police for settlements for the things that they've done to African Americans, and sometimes even some Caucasians I've sued and been successful. So I know how difficult it is to get that information and to have to delve around and dig and get it. And then after that, try to hold somebody accountable, because they had this thing called qualified immunity for police, whereby what would happen for you and I, had we done that thing, it's different than when an officer does it, because he's working on behalf of the state. So he has what they call qualified immunity.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because some questions have been centered around, the charge that the police officer received. And so my thing is, at the point where the gentleman, and they're trying to make a decision on whether it was premeditated or not, that's the only reason you could go after first-degree murder. And so my question is, at the moment the gentleman, George Floyd, said that I cannot breathe, why wouldn't the situation change? And the longevity of him saying it, and then you seeing that his body is losing oxygen because he's not moving, he's not talking.
He had passed out for 3 minutes.
Right.
He still was on it. Not only that, more importantly, I think, I've not heard anybody say this, the crowd around him was yelling, "You're killing him.
Mm-hmm.
You're killing him." And instead of him saying, all these people are concerned, he sat there casually and cavalierly with his hands in his pocket and basically showed them that I have the power. I am going to kill him. I hear you and I am ignoring you. And that is what black people, black men, we deal with every day. What you think you are not. You are what I say you are. You exist at my whim. I can take it at any moment. And that is what he demonstrated. That is what he believed. And I believe that all of those officers in Virginia, they have a statute called felony murder. If somebody dies and you're with that person when they commit the crime, you in the car in a robbery and your buddy runs in there and you driving a getaway car and somebody goes in there and shoots somebody and he gets in there and you didn't want anybody to get shot, you didn't have a gun, you were just driving the car, you guilty of felony murder, just like you, as though you had ran in there and shot him yourself. And that's what should be happening to those other officers. They were involved. Not only were they holding him down, but the other officers that were standing around had a duty to stop him and they didn't.
Right.
And so I think, I have one of my very best friends. I've been knowing him since I was 9 years old. He's high up in the food chain. I'm from Houston. So I'm really reflected. I got people that know George Floyd, that knew him. And he rest in peace. And my birth certificate says Dowling Street. That's 3rd Ward in Houston. That's where he's from. And I've talked to some of my boys that I grew up with that literally blocks away from that same area. They still live there. And one of them is in law enforcement, high up the food chain in Texas. And he cannot believe what he saw. He was ashamed. He called me literally in tears. This is another black man who's in law enforcement in tears about what he saw because he can't fathom it. And I see that stuff, and you see it's over and over and over again. It's always white police officers devaluing the lives of black folks. Very few times, I'm not gonna be mistaken. Sometimes it's a black cop in there somewhere, but every blue moon is a black cop. But for the most part, it's these white officers that feel emboldened to take the lives of black people and not even think they're not gonna be held accountable. But I think there are so many. I want to say this too, because people think I'm beating up on officers. I'm not. I think about 90% of them guys are good in trying to do their job and go home every day. So the vast majority, 90%, trying to do their job, black, white, whatever, they just trying to do their job, go home every day. Rarely, if ever, pull their weapon out to use it. But it's a 10%. That's a high number in law enforcement. That's walking around with a grudge, with some racial animus, with some don't know how to do their job, got some anger issues, and people are not flagging them. And when they are flagged, they get past it. I had an officer in court tell me one time he was going to get me. Threaten me. So I'm not at all surprised when these things happen. Where I'm from, nobody called the police because we knew if we did, it was going to be, you'd be better off trying to handle it yourself because all they did was usually make it worse. So that was my mentality growing up as a black man. The police is more trouble. They don't call. I know, people from other communities, they feel like, oh my God, somebody called the police. In my community, it was like, oh hell, who called the police? You know what I mean? It's a different, oh Lord. So I don't care what happened. You could have just got shot somebody. The last thing you do is you call, you figure it out. But hopefully, we're moving forward and the police, they're learning from this experience and they're going to do better. And I'm going to help them do better. Because the good cops want to be accountable. Right. Bad cops don't want to be accountable.
That's true. That's very true. One last thing, I think it's going to be one last thing. What do you tell young black men? Because I watched this video on Twitter and there was a 41-year-old, there was a 31-year-old, and there was a 16-year-old young man. The 41-year-old was, let's go ride, let's do this, do this. The 31-year-old was like, no, we got to do it different. We got to do it better. And here you have this 16-year-old young man. He stood just as tall as both of them. Young man. And I know he was confused, but he was angry too. But he had two mixed messages going on between two black men. One saying, let's go ride, let's go handle it. And the other young man is about peace. Yes, let's do it a different way. What do you say to these young black men or children that are growing up seeing these types of things and atrocities? And how can you encourage them that this won't happen to them?
That's a great question. I'm very honest. I have an 11-year-old daughter. Unfortunately, it breaks my heart. When I think about it, I want to cry. That I have to tell her that she will always be in America. She will always be judged by the color of her skin. That is America. That's my American experience. I pray that it won't be her experience. I pray it won't be her children's experience. But she's already seen it and noticed it. The children internalize and see way more than we do. They see us tense up. They know. They hear the news vaguely. They know everything that's going around. So I can't guarantee black men or black women that something bad won't happen to them that is no fault of their own simply because they're black. I cannot guarantee. That would be a lie to say that. But what I can say is this, and it's a shame to have to say it, but I tell them to avoid. My goal in life, even now, as a 55-year-old black man who is an attorney and who is a member of the House of Delegates, my goal in life at all times is to avoid interaction with the police on the street. So I'm always trying to avoid any interaction. And if I am interacting, that's in not a setting where we're having a conference or a talk or something like that, but just a normal interaction. That's not in court. I'm trying to limit the exposure for the shortest amount of time possible. So if I get pulled over for a ticket, yes, sir. I don't care what's going on. Yes, sir, give me my ticket and I'm out. I don't have no conversation. I'm not trying to defend myself. I'm not trying to go back and forth with them because he has that gun and he can use it and he gets to tell what happened. I always tell these young men that, it's better to walk away alive and hopefully, you can maintain your dignity in that interaction than to be arguing with these guys on the side of the street and doing that kind of stuff. And that's, what I want my people to do is just be safe so they can live and we can continue this momentum that we have. Martin Luther King Jr., and I know everybody owns Martin Luther King Jr. now. All the people want to be Martin Luther King. It's the first person they quote. But he always, I don't know who he coined this from, but he said the arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And so I think that we are all continuing on we've inherited from our forebears this opportunity. They couldn't even imagine that we would be where we are now. So I'm always grateful that in my DNA is that survival, that struggle, because somebody came through that survived and struggled for me to be here. And so I hope that my daughter will do the same, and I hope that your children will do the same and understand their legacy and their heritage so they can know it's in our blood to survive and fight. That's our heritage. So I don't feel sorry about it. I just want to understand that I want people to know the reality of it. So when all of these people tell me that they want me and they're on our team and they empathize, I don't care what they say. Show me in your actions. When you go up there and you vote right. When you go behind that booth, we should not be surprised because all of y'all with us now, but Trump shouldn't win again. You know what I mean? When I'm in the House of Delegates and we put some legislation forth that's going to help black people and they got to go vote, I shouldn't hear no hemming and hawing. They should be voting for it. So we'll get to find out what people really think, if they really believe in this idea around equality and justice really, really soon. And what our job is now is just to keep the pressure on. Don't let folks forget that, what happened. This is an opportunity for folks to take a look in the mirror and they have an opportunity to do some good things. And I hope that our kids are not discouraged because of what they see. I hope they are encouraged. This will make them lift their voices even more, that they'll get more become more expert on what's going on around them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and definitely they'll know how to handle it, like do it better than what we did. That should be the hope for every generation.
Yeah.
Generation before us, we should be doing it better than what they did. And we should see it in our family and our community that we did it different and we did it better. And we passed the torch on to a generation that's going to carry us even further than the previous.
That's right.
And so I hope that is the hope that we have and that we're going to get through this together. And we have to just be sensible, wise, and be strategic about the whole plan and the process.
I agree. And stay engaged. And vote. Because we got a good thing of doing a lot of yakking and walking. Yeah. And come down out there to go out there and vote and hold people accountable and support those people. If you can't give money, give time. You can't give time, give talent. Time, talent, resource, do something to make it happen.
But it was such a pleasure talking to you, Delegate Attorney.
Oh, friend, you know how we do it. We've been doing this for a while, boo boo. That's how we roll.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time with
All
me.
right.
It has been
Thank you.
great talking to
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate you.
All
All
right,
right.
Don. You
Take
have
care.
a great
We'll
day.
talk soon. Keep doing what you're doing. I know you're shining.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.